Welcome to a new season, season 6 of TNT Radio. If you're just joining us, thanks for joining us. And if you're coming back, great to see you. And great to see you, literally, in this case. For those of you who are maybe newer to the show, what we like to do here is explore and celebrate the full-length album. You know, the thing that you would play from start to finish. We like to talk about those albums from across musical genres, eras, and communities. It's a format that Tan and I believe is sort of lost in today's algorithmic, digitally oriented musical landscape. So each month, we're going to take you through a collected work and dig into its story and uncover its impact on society and time. This season on TNT, we're on a journey of discovery as always, and we'll be highlighting the incredible music and art that thrives in countries and places that are most often associated with war, conflict, and social strife. So to start us off this season, we have the debut release from Palestinian-American composer, producer, and sound artist, Omar Ahmad. We'll be talking about his 2023 AKP Recordings release, Inheritance. And to start us off, we're going to listen to a taste of the 5th track on the album, Losing a Friend. That was Losing a Friend, the 5th track on the debut album by Omar Ahmad, Inheritance, released in 2023. Tan, welcome to season 6.
It's good to see you, dude.
Can you believe it? Goodness gracious.
Yeah, we're actually live and direct.
We have a whole set We have, a crew of roughly 20 to 25 people who are here trying to make us look halfway decent.
Yeah.
Love all of them. They're great.
Yeah. A massive million followers.
So if you're listening to us on audio, you're probably really confused. We are also broadcasting. We'll be playing this on YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch us talk about all this shit, go on YouTube. But for audio listeners, you, of course, are OG fans, and we love you dearly. Ton, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Love it.
Getting through it,
Hey,
Just doing live production.
Aren't we all? Why? So is something weird in the world right now?
Yeah, we're in an outer world experience right now.
Aren't we?
So
aren't we?
We're live, and you guys get to see us, and it's not audio anymore. It's video and audio. So let's do this.
So to start us off, Ton, have you ever heard of Omar Ahmad? And had you ever listened to this album before?
I'm actually supposed to ask you that question.
Oh, for real? Well, that's okay.
So really, how did you come across this? Because you kind of brought this to me and to the show, and this whole idea of talking about war and strife and how that creates and how that affects culture and music. Like, how did this idea come out, and specifically for this album? How did that?
Yeah, totally. The idea is sort of the conceit for the season came out just because, as I alluded to, like there's so much fucked up shit happening in the world, and there's so many countries
really
going through something. Yeah,
I'm just coming to light now.
I know. Well, yeah. I just thought it would be nice to talk about some music, some art that has come out of some of these places that people may not have ever heard or certainly don't associate with, so you'll see as we go throughout the season, folks. So there's some stuff here that is pretty surprising, but it's fun. It's really cool. So I guess we just wanted to help slightly change the narrative about some of these places. And
totally.
Palestine, much of what comes out about Palestine is incredibly tragic and sad.
Yeah, it's been going on for a long time, man.
Yeah.
This is nothing new.
No, despite the most recent conflict, this is nothing new. You're very right about that. And so in the midst of sort of searching for something that I thought would be interesting for us to talk about, that would fit the sort of theme that we'd come up with, I found Omar Ahmad. He's a local Brooklynite, just like us.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's nice to see people do and create their culture and bring in their culture within their artwork and their sound works and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Essentially, he's an American composer, producer, and sound artist. And what's really nice is we're in Red Hook. Yeah. And I'm probably kind of jumping the gun, but fuck it. I don't really give a shit.
Go ahead.
Pioneer Works, right around the corner. He's going to do a residency there. But let's just kind of give a lowdown on what the personnel is. Essentially, it's Omar Ahmad. He's pretty much a multi-instrumentalist.
Self-taught.
Self-taught, which is kind of crazy. I think those are the best musicians, honestly.
You're just saying that because you're a self-taught musician?
I am a self-taught musician, and I think I'm very autodidactic.
Touche.
He's a cellist, synthesizer, guitar, percussion, voice, synth programming, CDJs, field recordings, effects. All the songs were written by him. As you mentioned, this was AKP number 23. There's a bunch of other, if you want to help me, we could pass the ball here.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just you were cooking. I was letting it happen.
I don't want to steal the shine, We're on a new setup. We're in person after fucking 5 years.
We've been doing it remotely quite a bit.
Yeah, dude. We were living in the pandemic for fucking 5 years, dude.
So from Omar's own website, it notes that his compositions are inspired by the balance between sets of distinct feelings that are paired in the world. So things like empathy and disconnection, loss and discovery, longing and isolation. So this is something that is sort of key to not only the themes of this album, which we'll talk about more later, but even just the building of this album and sort of how it came about.
Right.
So it's pretty fascinating stuff. And obviously, he's not the only one who participated on this album. There's a violinist, there's a synth programmer as well.
It was all actually recorded and mixed by him.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
cool.
March 2020 through December 2021.
Speaking of the pandemic.
And it was actually released on July 7th on 2023. Mastered by this guy named Sam Obey. The original painting of the artwork is by Singha Han.
If you're seeing us on YouTube, you can see it behind us. If you're listening, imagine an album cover behind us.
We'll probably talk about the artwork here in another section, but yeah, it's a really beautiful illustration. And the cassette, they did a cassette layout by Francie Chang. So that's kind of like who was kind of involved in what got this album together, and it's really cool just to speak about this local Brooklyn artist and just shine some more light on this person and what they're doing. And I'm really excited. I don't know when this is going to air, but I'm really excited about the Pioneer Works Residency. So that's the only thing. So
the press release that AKP put out when this album came out in July of 2023 was pretty interesting for a couple of reasons. One, they sort of talked about the idea that it's an enveloping orchestral ambiance that gives way to hypnotic Arab polyrhythms, dewy and playful nostalgic electronica, and shines a bright light into the dark depths of experimental meditations. Someone went to journalism school. I like that. That's good. But the other thing I thought was interesting is that they talk about how at times it recalls the emotional landscape of another artist that we've done on this here show. Ryuichi Sakamoto.
Oh yeah. I read that and I thought that was really interesting. I thought you were going to say Floating Points, I thought you were cueing me to say Nicholas Jar, but I think they're all related in some form because they have this kind of artistic quality and this practice behind it.
Yeah.
But also it's very vernacular to the music culture, right? Yeah. This guy's like out DJing and like playing all the parties and stuff like that. So,
he's very involved in like the electronic music scene in New York City.
And I want to talk about that later, about all the venues that he's played and stuff like that. But I feel that like it kind of falls within that line. And the sound art and the composer producer practice, but also trying to make it more of the time, right? And trying to regurgitate that, and how do you really make it introspective for the listener and yourself? So he's really putting a lot of reflection within himself into the work, right?
Absolutely. And, another thing in terms of like him putting himself into the work is that, he talks about the presence of his grandmother on this album.
Right, I see the notes here.
Yeah. It's as if we did a little bit of work on this before we started talking. It's so weird. So his... the presence and sort of the feeling of her on this album is intentional from him. He actually credits her for being not only the matriarch of the family, but also like the reason in which the family even exists in the way it does today. So she unfortunately passed away in 2017 at 90 years old, but I believe he either lives or lived in her house after that. Or no, what was going to happen.
Is that who the album's dedicated to?
It's dedicated to his grandmother.
Okay, got it.
But he was actually... He was moving in across the way from her, maybe in her apartment. Okay. And then before he could finish moving in, she unfortunately passed away. But he was that's how much his grandmother meant to it. It was he wanted to live across the hall from her, which is pretty incredible.
Right.
And, so there's a quote here which he's speaking about his grandmother, and he says, "She was an incredibly entrepreneurial and tough seamstress from East Jerusalem. She made a lot of amazing dresses in traditional Palestinian weaving. Which takes a particular style that is local to that area. And there's this little street named after her in East Jerusalem as well."
Oh, wow.
So, she obviously played a pretty significant role in his life up to this point.
Yeah, I think just to make it, give it a little bit more detail, the album was dedicated to her. I don't even want to try to pronounce the name, honestly, of his grandmother.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, I don't want to butcher that because people butcher my name.
I will say we're going to butcher a lot of names this season, so you might just want to rip the Band-Aid off.
But the album dedication essentially says that the strength, perseverance, you probably said this, and foresight I understand better every day. So he's reconciling and trying to understand. And it will raise a lot of other questions that we're going to talk about here. And he says, "Thank you to Amira for putting up with me during this process, Val for keeping me authentic and dialed in, and Sam for your ears, wisdom, and mentorship." So this is really unique in the sense that we are a full album, and obviously today we're very digital and we're very singles based. Everything's all about single. It's all about every week you get a release, blah blah blah, and it's not really about the composition and bookending it and really thinking about the product or the composition. And I really really admire that he really puts this all together for the audience to listen to, because it's just so hard to find this information now, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, this album in particular, like, really is like a listen to top to bottom. Like it takes you. It does. I feel like it does. You know, it sounds cliche, but it does take you on a journey.
Right.
You know,
it does.
There are parts of it that are very low key and very quiet.
Yeah.
And then there are parts that are dancey. There are parts that are more upbeat. Like it really.
But what's your take on it? What's your first impressions on it?
My first impressions is like, I was like, oh man, this is much more ambient than I thought it was going to be, because there are pieces of it that feel so atmospheric and so natural, in a way in which, like, you know, you mentioned floating points earlier. Like the only other time I've thought that in recent time, listening to someone described as like an electronic musician, like a dance musician,
Right.
Would be floating points.
Yeah, it's funny because you saw him last week. Yeah.
Shout out to my boy Chris Clemens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I would say this is definitely ambient electronic, kind of like, you know, what's that guy's name?
Floating points.
Floating Points and
You're pointing over there. Like
Aphex Twin, our guy, Aphex Twin
that's
here.
A good, that's a good.
I don't know, when we first started doing the show, I felt like I was very electronic bass, and you were very instrumental, live music bass. Yeah. So for you to come across this album and be like, yo, we should check this out. Mm-hmm. You're going to Floating Points, so there's a lot of growth happening here. You know, so I'm acknowledging the growth that's happening. So that's all I'm really saying.
Your late 30s comes for you. Before you know it, let's put it that way.
But yeah, like, it's very self-reflective. It's very natural. It's very top to bottom, listening from the beginning to end. It's very ethereal to me. It's what came to me is natural, ethereal, and nature. Right? Those are the three words that really got me thinking about myself and how I fit into that, but also how does the album fit into the larger context of our whole season 6 theme, essentially, you know?
Absolutely.
And Nicholas Jar and Floating Points, that's another.
Who's Nicholas Jar? You mentioned.
He's also Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's also artsy.
I'm unfamiliar.
Yeah, we should actually do an album on him. Okay. Actually, his parents come from like this art world, and like he kind of spawned off, and his parents like wanted him to be this like artist, institutional artist, but he just went off and did music, and he's actually really big and. We should definitely do it. I'm surprised we haven't done it yet.
So you're saying a musician rebelled against his parents? And
as
did
an
his
artist.
own thing? Okay, all right. That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so just out of my first impressions, the first 2 tracks that really like came to life for me was the first track that we played, track 5, Losing a Friend. Out of that one, I've really thought that was, no pun intended, jarring, because it was just kind of like choppy, you know. Good. It's definitely like losing a friend. Like, out of the other tracks, they're very smooth and very rolling.
Right.
And then the other one was named Ursa. It was track number 6, and what I wrote here reminds me of early 8 p.m. start time, getting ready for the club, very existential, very reflective. So if he comes from a DJ kind of S culture, and I'm just kind of like, okay, where would you play this track?
Right.
And where would I play this track if I were to play it out?
Yeah.
So I listened to it. I don't know. I want people to listen to it and see where it fits into your space, because the questions that he's asking the audience and his listeners is really self-reflective and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So just to give you a little more detail about who Omar Ahmad is, there's a huge article on Resident Advisor about him. And it talks about, in that article, it talks about how he has a desire to derive the essential elements of sound and how it's grown towards more found sound immersions. So, you know, this idea of natural nature, that type of thing. I think that really comes across. And then it goes on to talk about how it's a globally influenced musical styling and storytelling, and like creates a lush atmosphere. And I think that's like, I think that just confirms what you were saying.
Yeah, it's kind of multidisciplinary, right? I think being a musician is not only just being about your ears, it's visual, it's taking that all into context and mashing it up and really trying to tell that story in a different way and through your perspective. And he definitely does that. I personally like it. It's different, it's local.
I wish it was longer. Honestly, I wish it was longer. If I had to say anything, I would say like,
how long is
there's only 8 tracks. I mean, it's 35 minutes, but like there's only 8 tracks. Like it basically like sets you down and like gets you like ready to listen.
Right.
And then I feel like it ends. I'm like, oh damn, I wish there was more.
Well, that's what
But, you know,
that's what you kind of want, right?
Yeah,
you
I guess
kind of
you
want
wanna-
always. You kind of always want more.
That's
but you
right.
always don't want to give it away.
That's right. We're gonna leave him on a cliffhanger.
Like right now. See you later.
So many great tricks where you get to find out about doing this in a video format instead of just audio. You know.
Yeah. There's a lot being seen here.
Also, in that Resident Advisor article, they talk about how he uses like this incredible combination of instrumentation and then live manipulation as well. And the reason why is to basically create like a proto-genre, what they say is a natural atmosphere that envelops his audience in a dark, ritualistic sense of community. That's dark, ritualistic sense of community is like, that's a dance floor, right?
Yeah,
I think I've never heard of
that.
That
is a dance floor. I think there's a quote that he says. I'm trying to find it in the notes, but he says that like he wants people to lay down, run, or however you engage with it. Interpret it or engage with it, and do it as you will. But as long as you self-reflect in this, that's what I got from that quote. I'm trying to find what he was trying to say, but it'll probably come up later.
I'm sure it will. Cool. Anything else that you wanted to add about just, you know, your thoughts on this album and just, you know, about him generally?
No, I'm really excited. Like,
before we move on?
I'm really excited about the new setup. I'm really excited about talking about all the albums. I'm really excited for seeing you because I haven't seen you for like 5 years.
Well, I wouldn't say that. That's an exaggeration. But,
Okay.
Well, in that case, I think we should probably play another track.
The next track? All right, cool.
So we're going to listen to the second song on the album called Gesso. I believe that's maybe how it's pronounced. Gesso.
Or Gesso, maybe.
So let us know if that's wrong. Yeah. Okay. Here it is.
تعالي يا نيويورك تعالي من البلاد تعالي شوفي عمر
ماما شو عمر إلك؟ لا شو بس النايم بس شو هو؟ في خي؟ بتحبيه؟
تمام كلي هاي صفية هاي يعني
هاي صبية هاي ستي هاي يا عمر يا مسعد عمر يا مسعد صبية حبيبي
يا عمي
يا
يا عمر.
صبية يا عمر يا عمي يا عمي يا حبيبتي تعالي بس ما جيت لنا اليابة انت وصبية.
Okay. We just heard Gesso, the second track, or Gesso, depending. Second
maybe.
track.
I don't
maybe.
know. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know.
find out.
We're dealing with a lot of regulation here.
That's fine.
You know,
That's
so
fine. I think we're good. So it's the second track on Omar Ahmad's debut album, Inheritance. And just to note that another new fun thing we're doing this season is that we're going to put all the tracks that we play in the show, we're going to put them on a playlist that everyone can access. So if you're a listener, we'll put them in the show notes on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple and all that shit. And you can go through and check all this stuff out.
pick and choose.
So, yeah, absolutely. To dive a little deeper into some of the themes of this album, one thing that comes across, I think, inherently, but then also explicitly in this article in Resident Advisor is the idea that Omar kind of finds himself feeling as a quote-unquote third culture musician.
Right.
And by that he means he's often trying to find himself, he often finds himself, rather, looking to voice his own state of being caught in between movements and never fully belonging to a singular sound or an ideology. And it's kind of interesting because he actually performed under a different name when he first started out.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
What is
so
that?
he performed under a name that is in my notes. Where is it?
Well, let me just kind of break it
ahead.
down while you do that,
Yeah.
because essentially, like, third culture. This is actually the first time I actually heard about this. Actually,
Yeah.
I googled it with Gemini AI. Unfortunately,
You Google without AI.
I googled without AI, but it just was forced upon me. But anyways, third culture musician. The definition that I spat back out refers to a culture that is influenced by two or more cultures and is not the same as either of the original cultures. So we were talking about this yesterday, preparing for the show or whatever, and essentially we were talking about my background and others. It's like identifying as second generation, third generation.
Yeah.
So he's identifying as a third culture, and the term is often used to describe children who grow up in different culture than their parents' culture. So
That makes sense then.
he was born here, and he is pretty much playing between two cultures. A very, I would say, this is my own words here, traditional or older parents structure, and then this new other landscape, cultural landscape.
Yeah.
So that does kind of mold into this whatever.
Yeah, honestly, it's the first time I'd really heard the term as well, but it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Just, that idea of, the context that you grew up is going to be different, the context which your parents grew up is going to be vastly different,
Right.
and then not to mention the impact of time,
Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole different podcast. But,
Yeah.
So he actually originally started performing as twin primes.
Twin primes, okay.
So he did that because it's in the piece in Off Shelf, he's quoted as saying, I actually held a lot of shame over his name, Omar Ahmad.
Right, yeah.
He said it felt like John Smith of the Middle East as a kid in post 9/11 New York. And then he goes on to say, given that a lot of my life and time in dance spaces were through more of an escapist lens, twin primes was a very fitting and obscure name to hide behind.
Right.
But he said once the pandemic hit, he basically realized that he needed to reckon with a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Not only, a breakup in his life, the death of, sort of like the pause of nightlife, the death of nightlife temporarily. And then he said, his own projection of fear of himself onto all the projects that were basically like keeping him busy to like kind of engage with his own feelings and his own thoughts.
Yeah.
So he goes on to say, like, Inheritance, this album, was born out of the quiet. And it was the first thing that he wrote that actually felt like it was who he is, and it held a mirror up to himself. So he said during this time, I gained a lot more confidence in my name.
Yeah, as you're saying that, it kind of reminds me, I kind of relate to that in the sense that you really have to embrace what is given to you, whether you choose it or not. And it's kind of him reflecting and re-identifying what this third culture is, right? Because he, whether it's privilege or not, or opportunity or not, he can define that. And defining and accepting what you're about to deliver, which is this album, you have to kind of embrace it and just kind of accept it and make it what it is. And that's so true for me personally with my own name and maybe the episode that we're going to be recording later in Vietnam, about Vietnam. But yeah, the third culture idea and him reflecting is very reminiscent of what I've experienced and what a lot of people experience.
Yeah, totally.
In that sense.
And he actually, when he's talking about the album, I found a quote that he was saying, like, it's actually too rhythmic for the ambient heads, and it's too ambient for the rhythmic heads. So, that's another thing of being stuck between two things. Yeah, but two different movements, two different ideologies.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to say about his identity, he says, I'm quoting him here, he says, I'm definitely too Arab to be considered the average American,
right,
and too American to be considered the average Palestinian. Yeah. So, he definitely feels like the push and pull of kind of this idea of not only third culture, but his own identity, be it his musical identity or his personal identity.
Yeah, the paint that he's offered, right, to color his story or whatever, So the rhythmic part and the ambience, it's the silence. I feel like the silence may be like this void that he's trying to fill, and this rhythmic part that he already has from his cultural background. So it totally fits. You listen to it, but the sounds to me are genuine. To him, and the themes that he talks about is just kind of deep, like real. This is not a deep cut. This is this is a deep cut kind of. Like he for me personally, it's a very dualistic view. But I'm not saying that he's dualistic. He's just bringing up the fact and sharing light on it is empathy and disconnection, loss and discovery, longing and isolation. And he kind of prefaces by, while not claiming to provide any answers, the work grants the listener an opportunity to run, dance, lay on the floor in stillness and reflect on their own connection to the greater fabric we're all woven into. So that was the quote that I was trying to find earlier. And these questions, he explicitly writes it in the PR or the press release, like, when you're listening to this, reflect on this, because you can only say so much with music. Right. Music is very abstract, and music is very subjective. Right. So to have a written accompaniment to his musical language is can't get more clear than that. Really, honestly, to tell the truth, like, this is the show. We're not like telling the show or the story for him, but we're trying to do our part. We're trying to highlight and reflect on what he's given prompted us on. So,
absolutely. Well, and maybe that's what the silence in the album is sort of for. Maybe you don't, first time through, you're not necessarily thinking about the questions that he's prompted, but as you do a little bit of, maybe you hear it and you're like, oh man, I gotta learn more about this guy. And then you go and you see these questions he's prompting. Does it then make you think about the spaces on the album differently?
Yeah, because what's really prompting him to ask those questions, really, at the end of the day, like empathy and disconnection, like empathy against understanding his connection with his grandmother in the passing, or the disconnection from that, right? Or the loss and discovery of this identity, the longing, isolation, like pandemic, right? So gives me
he referenced it.
Goosebumps just thinking about it.
Omar, you really got to it. And he also makes reference to having extended family like still in Palestine, and so that longing and that isolation, both like from them and then them themselves too, especially given the last year and a half. I actually wanted to unpack that a little bit more, but it's just kind of funny because the bio part was supposed to be in the beginning, but this is where it is. But he says that the intimate reflection of the blurry, vast, and cyclical changing nature of Ahmad's inner world, right? And then he says, I found this really interesting, where whether it's a press release or an article or something, where it said, the inconsistency of memory and shaky concepts of self are two recurring themes that hopefully bring the listener to not only ponder as an adult, but also to engage with their inner child throughout the listening process. So
I think that's what music kind of serves, along with like all other art. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
That it's you're trying to find a little bit of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And then within the music of him creating it, he's offering a little bit of his perspective, obviously, to the audience, and he wants that reciprocation.
Yeah.
And that goes to the larger theme of where he's positioned as an artist and
Yeah.
the whole political landscape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think it's, that's, of course, music plays, everyone wants to identify, I mean, I won't say everyone, but I think a lot of people who like music and are find deep gratification in music are searching for a means of sort of finding some sort of identity or something to connect to, if nothing else. So what was can you read that quote again that he had? It was really good, like the idea of...
Inconsistency?
Yeah. Say that
the inconsistency of memory and shaky concepts.
That
So
summation
true.
was really good.
Yeah,
If you think about the way that, you deal with life, you think about the way in which...
pandemic coming, like how we're reflecting about that now.
Yeah, you think about you're like, wait, did I actually? When was that? Time gets fuzzy, your memories get messed up because everything felt so similar and so blended together, and also at the time it felt so incredibly slow and nuts.
Yeah, and I think before we were recording, we were doing the pre-production, you said something like, should we talk about current events? Or I'm like, yeah, talk about it, because it is a time capsule within a perspective of somebody's human experience.
Right.
That's what I'm really trying to say. And it's just when this person talks about memory, it's true, memory is very fickle. Everybody has a different type of memory. Some is lost, some is found, discovered. So that's actually something you create your own narrative, and by cementing or crafting this idea of and putting in a time capsule like this, you're frozen in time, and you're trying to capture that memory. But even trying to capture this memory down in the future and listening back on it is a new interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to not get too deep.
What else are we here for, Tom?
Yeah.
Well, and also, you think about the idea of how much of a role his grandmother played on his life, and obviously this album's dedicated to her. So you think about holding on to those memories, not really remembering, was it 92 or was it that idea of those inconsistencies of his own memories of this person, who I'm guessing here, but the idea that maybe some of those memories sometimes get a little scrambled. I know in my own life there are times where I'm like, wait, which trip was that?
Exactly.
Where was I for that?
Well, does that segue into our next thing where you wanted to talk about samples?
Totally.
People wanted to talk about samples.
I did. I know.
Specifically for
Ton, a sample.
This track or the next track?
Just on the album as well.
On the album in general. Okay.
So Ton, a sample. No, I'm just kidding. So he actually used, apparently, he went through dozens of hours of cassettes that he had during the pandemic. He said he's an incredibly nostalgic person. He likes to look backward at different stuff like that. And he also talks about being someone who suffers from being too committed to a concept. And so basically he was hunting for sound bites. And he was doing less hunting for sound bites and more time watching videos. So he said in that process a few things came across. So the samples that felt like tender moments or hilarious life events. He said that doesn't necessarily drive home the intensely clear message, but instead invites the listener into the more intimate, more relatable and real nature of his upbringing. And then he says, many writers try too hard to make sense of life to fit a singular narrative, and he said that frustrates him. So different samples that he used on this album, and I believe we heard some of these in the last song we heard, Gesso. One sample is his father in the West Bank visiting the land of his grandparents. Another is his sister's announcing his birth to his father and mother on video camera, and then speaking to his grandmother.
Wow.
And then there's another one of his grandmother talking and telling the kids what she had built for them. And the last sample apparently on the album is of his parents' wedding tape. And there was a singer named Eid Hamdan. Apparently he crashed the party just to plug his own brand and obnoxiously make everything about him, which Omar says is a not uncommon occurrence in the more patriarchal and archaic parts of Arab culture.
Damn.
So, you can hear it. Some of this stuff does sound like home videotapes.
Yeah, and this is where the found sound or field recording, sound art comes into play, right?
Yeah.
I think being an artist, you kind of, not do it because you have to stay current, but it's also self-reflective. And what really, I'm just going to kind of switch it and pivot just a little bit where you said this, one of the samples was about land, right? And one of the questions that he poses, or they pose in this album is, what is a right to land? Or what is a right to a land? So I kind of broke this down, or I didn't break it down, I kind of just went on a tangent here. And what I found is current ideas of what land is, I don't know, sorry to bring up Trump in Gaza and building building hotels and shit. So that was the first thought because of our own current political landscape. The definition to some may be land is a solid surface of the earth, not covered by water. It includes all continents and islands. Land can also refer to the soil or ground in a specific area. And then land is the resources. Land is earth, land is dirt, land is foundation, land is territory, land is owned, land is occupied. I think that's what comes to my mind. I want to pose that question to you and anybody who's listening. Like, this idea of land, it's very materialistic, it's very nature, it's very organic, but somehow it's been twisted and convoluted into this ownership or this responsibility to cultivate or whatever. I just wanted to know what your perspective is.
I mean, I think capitalism warps the entire idea of land and land ownership and who has a right, quote unquote, to that. And for me, I guess it's not so much like the dirt or the lack of water or whatever whatever is stable enough to build on it. I think for me, it's more, what are the people who are there? Like the land is one
occupation, or the occupying of the.
Well, occupying is another word that has been co-opted. I would say that sort of, not only is land something that we have taken from nature, like it was never anyone's to begin with. It was nature's. So kind of moving past that, because just the way in which the world works. I think it's more so, I'm more interested in the people. I'm less concerned about a border. I'm less concerned about a quote-unquote government. I'm less concerned about, like, identifying in that way. I think people are the things that make up, what I would say, not only not land, but communities.
Yeah, relationships or communities or the seer.
Yeah.
Or the conscious.
Right.
There would be no land without the seer. Or the person occupying it or living on it.
We're going back to shadow on the cave wall here.
No, seriously, there would be no caves if we didn't see it, you know? So,
absolutely.
I guess we could segue into community too, but there's another thing. We don't have to dive too deep on it.
No, but I mean, I think it kind of fits what we were talking about.
It goes into this. I really thought this was really interesting. Is this idea of responsibility to the youth, as he says, to carry forward the struggles and the undertakings of their elders, right? Like, what is that responsibility, if there is any? Yeah. And for me personally, it's unfortunate, even though maybe this is idealistic, but I don't see any responsibility to carry over struggles or trauma or anything like that, but we are set forth to do that because that's kind of what shades us, like what perpetuates us to our next decisions or whatever.
That's interesting.
To honest to tell you, I wish I could just come in with a blank slate and have no prompts and be like, just prompt myself, and that's what I'm desiring. But the responsibility, the way he phrased it is youth, a generation, and carrying it over, like, from your perspective or from anybody's perspective who wants to answer this, put it in the comments. What do you think the responsibility is of today's youth or the future youth of taking care of whatever generational whatever that carries over?
This is like totally unrelated into what we're really talking about today, but like they talk about that a lot in like punk. They talk about like the responsibility of the kids coming up today to like not abuse the spaces in which these things take place in. So like DIY areas, DIY spaces, even just local smaller clubs. Yeah. There's a whole song by Adam and His Package about not being an asshole and like destroying the venue for no reason just because you think it's like quote unquote punk rock. Right. And so ideally, in my opinion, like the elders, if you want to call them that, I guess that's us, are not passing down all the bullshit and all the trauma and all like the whatever. Of course that inherently sort of happens, but like for me, it's like you're trying to teach the people, and not like trying like actively necessarily, but like you're trying to
telling a story,
provide an example of
Yeah.
how to engage in this in a way that is good for everyone, in a way that makes everyone feel like they're welcome. You know? And that's like specifically more of like a punk rock type of thing.
Okay, so now that we kind of lay down the real question is how do we break? This is a specific question. The question was, how can we break the recurrence of intergenerational trauma that gives rise to the cyclical conflicts that tear away at the heart of humanity? That's a dark, not dark, but deep.
It's a good question.
Like, it's not even deep cuts in music. This is just deep. You know, so
absolutely.
I think without my own personal journey, whatever growth or whatever you want to say, it's really learning about acceptance, right? So there's responsibility on both sides and acceptance on both sides, and that's just from my own personal thing. But that's a very difficult question to answer, based from, if you could try to imagine, if you could try, you know, based on the political landscape. So I just want to bring that up. It's a very fitting show for me to do. I really like this. You know, just based on that, the music is really great, but this is another layer of really to engage with it.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's what's sort of cool about finding this artist is like, he is not just like, oh, check me out on like fucking Instagram or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
I got another release today.
He's literally like trying to engage people to make them both engage with the music differently, but then think differently about themselves, about their communities, about the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of incredible.
Just gonna segue into
go ahead.
On a lighter note,
sure.
But community, right? So like obviously that's a broader context of the world and humanity and stuff like that. But I guess for me personally, my perspective is like, how do you make an impact? Right. So I think based on what his actions are, he's making an impact in his local community of Brooklyn, New York, playing this party. Playing at certain clubs here in New York, elsewhere, Jupiter Disco, The Lot Radio, Ace Hotel. I think the party name is Umboma. Yeah, so with another artist named Alicia Coleman, Sweet Kicks, and they're co-founders of a global music series. And it's all focused on nature, complementary nature of African, Arab, and Latin American contemporary sounds. So that's in a dance music club setting, which is really, he co-founded that. So he's done a lot of shows and events to fundraise and raise awareness for the cause, right? And his specific cause.
He has a great quote about that when talking about that party. Yeah. And it's really kind of fitting with what we're doing here this season, I'm not going to lie. He says, a lot of these regions, the Arab world, Africa, Latin America, in particular, are regions where there's been so much great suffering and co-opting of their cultures and appropriation of their cultures. So to be able to let the music breathe and pay homage to the artist directly, rather than listening to a deep house track with some random Arab vocal in the background by some random dude playing it, like some random like Finnish guy or whatever, like playing it. He said that's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
So we see you, Omar. We see you.
Yeah, it's actually I wouldn't say an issue or a problem. It is something prevalent. It's like cultural appropriation, right? There's a lot of, and dance music is is definitely guilty of that, or any sort of music is guilty of that. Cross-genering, like when Black Coffee won Best New DJ Dance for the Grammy or whatever, everybody was playing Afro House after that, and not. Whenever I say everybody, I mean like every color, race, culture was doing a remix. So like he's saying that just don't throw a sample of somebody speaking another language and call it that genre. Yeah. If there's no specific tie to your own, cultural history maybe, or
you're not trying to do it in a way that feels genuine, and honoring it at least.
Honoring it in a way.
Giving it its due.
And it's unfortunate because I do see people doing that, and it's hard because from their perspective, they're trying to maybe put it on a platform, stuff like that. But it's also, how do you tell that narrative so that you can support, right? Yeah. In tandem, right? Without giving it all away or taking it.
Totally.
And then, if you want to talk about the label too, I think the label, really, or we could wait. I don't know.
No. I think it's kind of fitting because the label I think is trying to do this. Right. Is trying to give it a space. Is trying to work with different artists to let that happen. So we mentioned earlier this album came out on AKP recordings. So AKP is
Los Angeles based.
Yeah.
They're like kind of studio art, multidisciplinary, engaging.
It's kind of run by one guy who has a...
Yeah.
He said it's a creative hub for experimental music and visual art. So they strive to be a champion in the art community, pushing limits of ambient.
It's
alternative
studio
jazz.
first. It would say studio first, and there's like an offshoot of recording.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And they have a pretty well-written and I think meaningful equity statement on their website in terms of like how they're trying to engage different artists, what they're trying to do with the label and with the music.
Right.
And I think that's really great. And so hopefully we'll see more stuff.
This
from
was
AKP.
let's see, this was release number 23. So
it's still pretty early on.
and I think it's really interesting because if you go on their website, there's a lot of BTS stuff, and there's a lot of the people that they work with is like educators, filmmakers, web, graphic, all disciplines, right? And I think that's just like I don't know, Nolan was here somewhere. He was saying a Willy Wonka house of just fun, and this is what it feels like right now.
I mean, it's not dissimilar from another label called Out of Print that I've heard about. You know?
Out of print.
So should we play another track?
Yeah, I think we should play another track.
Cool. So we're going to listen to the song Ursa, which is the other one that you really liked. That we
I think
talked
it's
about
track
before,
number
right?
7
track 6.
or 5 or something like
track
that.
6.
6, okay.
So we're going to listen to Ursa, track 6 on Inheritance.
live on Twitch right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice. Sick.
Track 6 from Inheritance. That was Ursa. You know, I think that sample sounds like the dude who crashed the wedding.
Oh yeah.
If you think about
sounds,
it,
yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
it could be. Yeah, it could be.
Kind of sounds like that.
Yeah.
So Tom, what do you like about that song in particular?
I was talking about earlier, and again, I think it's the only 4/4, a slow 4/4 that has rhythm. I wouldn't say it has rhythm. There's other tracks that are a bit more ambient that has rhythm. You could have, percussion without rhythm, or rhythm without percussion.
Yeah.
But again, it was it was the second track that really stuck out because it really segues into the old and the new.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's trying to cater to this ambient sound art type thing, but he also has this other side where he's trying to create this new identity, and that new identity is through this party, through doing a residency, through DJing.
Right.
So it's 4/4, and I'm a 4/4 dude, and I like
It's
percussion.
funny you picked up on the 4/4 thing, because I found a really interesting quote from him talking about the making of this album.
Okay.
And he said, as a challenge to myself, all the tracks of Inheritance were made without any rhythms at first.
Cool.
So he actually he did that as a way to really stay in the discomfort of learning what to do with clashing and undulating melodies that he was afraid to tame. He said, much to his surprise, his main learning was that starting with beats made the melodies in field recordings suffer. He said they needed to fit into a predetermined framework. As opposed to, or he said, or arbitrarily too much with the dance floor audience in mind, as opposed to letting
The
those
musicality.
things come across
I totally
on their own,
agree.
naturally. So it's I've never heard that before. That's fascinating.
I wouldn't say I've never heard it. This is the first time I've really heard it in that perspective, but I kind of agree in the sense that, like, we're on the grid, dude. Like, you go in Ableton, or you go on, every 4/4 track is right on the money, right on the 1, right on the 2, right on the 3. And I think I'm interpreting this. This is like, start with the free flowing melody, the human quality, the swing, right? Jay Dilla.
Yeah.
He's like the captain of the swing, right? So put that human quality into it, and then build the percussion around it, right? That's because we're so inundated with like drum machines and like being on the grid, and it's funny because everybody wants to be analog and all this stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited about what he's gonna do for this residency, and because just knowing that, and like his he's reverse engineering, right? He's reverse engineering what melody is, and structure is, and timing and all that stuff. So it's a really good way to approach a practice of music and sound.
Dope. Yeah. So there aren't a million reviews of this album out, because it's not out on a major label or anything like that, and it's relatively recent. But I found a really cool one from this site called Echoes and Dust.
Okay.
And they talk about its sort of sound and its feeling, and they say it requires some serious talent to be able to create inventive musical concepts without any formal music education, and that's exactly what Ahmad does here. And they say, without being formally aware of the music formula's rules or genre boundaries, he approaches his music with a childlike enthusiasm and innovation, coupled with extensive experience as a DJ. We talked about Boma earlier, but he's also this thing called Laylit, which is also a fast-growing contemporary Middle Eastern and North African music community here in New York. And they go on to say, basically, the results are no less than excellent. They say, they talk about how at times he recalls concepts, again, Finesse and Ryuichi Sakamoto. And they say he came up with one of the more intriguing debuts of 2023.
Yeah, I'm excited that, like, it's amazing that we get to experience these. I've not yet gone to a show, but I'm looking forward to Pioneer Works and to go to Jupiter Disco or whatever. And being in New York and Brooklyn, we're so super spoiled.
Yep.
But we have to plan and be early on those super spoiled events.
Yeah.
But just talk about Pioneer Works, they're just like an art museum, and like they're practicing and working. They have
modern experimental arts.
Modern. Essentially, the synopsis is he has a residency there. I'm not really sure how long the residency is, but I'm assuming it's a sound sound one, and I'm not sure what the topic is, but it says that his debut solo record, Inheritance, was released in 2023 by AKP Recordings to a wide spectrum of praise, including electronic sounds, Bandcamp's best ambient music, and DJ Mag's 8 emerging artists you need to hear. A full remix album entitled Inheritance Remix was released in 2024 with contributions from Tammy Lakis, Samo B, Odo Dojo, and more. Tammy Lakis is sick. Big up Tammy Lakis from Detroit. She's another Persian and Middle Eastern like artist. Yeah, so
cool.
Dance music.
Yeah.
We should definitely do. If she comes out with a proper album, we should definitely do that.
That'd be fun.
Female.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I think another part of this is Ahmad has not rested in his support of sonic resistance and collective liberation through the Palestinian lens via live performances and new improvisations in his single, Tala Badru. So I'm really interested on what this residency is and what comes out of it.
Yeah.
And he has an opportunity or not opportunity, whatever you want to see it.
Yeah.
He's there.
Yeah.
You can actually probably go there and go visit him. I'm not exactly sure.
It starts in April, I think?
It starts in April.
I don't know what time this is coming out, but
April 2025,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
So if you get to see it, go check it out. If you haven't seen it or you're going to go see it and you've seen it already, put in the comments and let us know.
Spread the word, for sure.
Yeah, and we're going to go say what's up to him and maybe try to meet this dude. I don't know.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Totally do that.
But yeah, let's go.
Just to give our context of what 2023 was like.
Yeah, 2023 overview, foundation, whatever you want to see it. We kind of do this overview of like social impact. So the social impact or how it influenced or did not influence what was going on at the time.
Exactly.
This is what we usually do. So you have some charts, right?
Yeah. The Billboard singles and album charts were, in my opinion, pretty tough in 2023. You have 2 top 10 albums by Morgan Wallen, country singer who abused some COVID guidelines and couldn't perform on SNL as a result. Cool guy, real cool guy. 2 Taylor Swift albums, SZA, Drake, who's incredibly popular right now. I'm just kidding. Kendrick Lamar has destroyed his entire career. Bad Bunny, which is totally fine, but then so just nothing like nothing.
Guess those are the top of the top commercial
nothing at
rated
all like
Billboard,
this.
right?
Nothing at all like this album. Let's put it that way.
I would say in the musical landscape, in the political news landscape, cultural landscape. Let's start with the music. Let's start with the music first. Taylor Swift. Let's ease it into it. So we get, Taylor Swift won 9 MTV awards, which is crazy. And then Beyonce did her record-breaking tour that year, but big up Beyonce for winning the Grammy this year for Best Album, I think, or something like that.
Sure, the Grammys are a thing.
Yeah. So news-wise, what's newsworthy is Bangladesh, world news, Bangladesh political shift, like student-led protests, like ousted the prime minister in 2023, so that was a big shift. And then Myanmar's human rights struggle, they've always probably had but it was a really big push on that part. And then in the U.S. national is Donald Trump's hush money case against the president, which is kind of like a first indictment of a felony or some shit like that. I don't know.
Well, and also, this album came out in July 2023.
Yeah, so
October 7th, 2023 happened mere months later, and obviously that is still that is still happening as we speak.
Yeah, and just another context is he recorded this in 2020 to 2023. It wasn't released until 2023.
No, but everything he's been doing thereafter has been to basically raise awareness about all the fucked up shit happening
so
there.
This is nothing new. I'm really glad that the light is on him now.
Yeah, I think it's great. I want to, as we said, I'd love to go check that stuff out and check out some of these communities. I just think the way to end the cultural context portion of this is just say free Palestine.
Yeah, exactly.
Then there's no easy transition out of that into basically wrapping up the show.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
That is what it is.
We're out of time, y'all. Sorry.
But I think it's a fitting way to end. So we want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for possibly watching. If you are watching, listening, whatever, however you get this and enjoy it.
In the shower, in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Getting ready.
If you're in the shower, tell us more about that. Whatever. Rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. Like and subscribe. What? On YouTube.
Yeah.
Email us, TNTRadioNYC tnt.radio@gmail.com, tnt.radio on Instagram.
Yeah.
As we talked about many times throughout this episode, this is our 6th fucking season. So
Yeah.
we have 50 episodes already in the can. Feel free to go find those wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep.
And as we talked about earlier, we're going to make a playlist this year for all the music that we're talking about. We'll put that link in the show notes so you can check that out. We want to say huge thanks to Brandon, to Nolan, to Scott, all the people that basically make this happen.
Yeah.
Without them, we would A, not be doing it like this, and B, look like shit. So thank you. Thanks to Out of Print Records. Check out their new website, outofprintrecordings.com, just
Yeah.
launched the other week.
Yeah.
How about that? Ultimately, thank you so much. Join us again next time.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just make sure you check out the YouTube because that's the community. That's where you can see us.
Absolutely.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Bye.
Peace.